Thanks so much for joining us today. I'm Paul Fleming, and I'll provide a little bit of background about myself here in a moment. First off, though, I wanted to thank the Alliance for Global Water Adaptation, where I'm a board member, for sponsoring this official virtual side event today, which is part of the UN Water Conference. And also want to thank Tom Freiberg from Antillean Media, who is our esteemed moderator today, and of course, our panelists, who are a fantastic cohort. As noted, I'm Paul Fleming. I am the president of Water Value. Water Value provides advisory services to startups and scale-ups and investors in the water and climate tech space. And we also provide consulting services to NGOs, corporations, and utilities on corporate water strategy and climate resiliency. But today I wanted to really focus on and highlight how AI can be put to use to accelerate the transformation of water management. And I think if you're on this call, I assume you realize we're not where we need to be with respect to water. And this transformation of water management is essential if we're going to meet the goals of SDG 6, but also the national determined contributions that are part of the Paris Agreement, where water is integral to many of the country level commitments that have been made through this NDC process. So today we really want to surface, how is AI being used now in the water space? We have some great companies that will share how they're doing that. But also, what are the most salient applications? Where do we think AI is best served to address some of the needs in the water space? Are there breakthrough applications that are in the pipeline or imagined that we should be focusing on? And what are the barriers, the headwinds, so to speak, that need to be removed to realize those breakthrough applications? But maybe even more importantly, what constraints do we need to bring to the table as we deploy AI into society? So we're not going to get into all these issues today, obviously. If there's enough interest, maybe we can have a follow-up session. But with this group of panelists, I think we're going to make a really great start.
Thanks, Paul, and great to see everyone here, panelists and the audience as well. I think it's about as timely as it could be, not only with World Water Day tomorrow and the UN Water Week in New York. Many people are tuning in from New York, but also the topic of AI. I mean, we've seen recently how quickly things are moving with the advancement of ChatGPT-3 and with 4 and the rollout of OpenAI in terms of putting AI into the hands of the public. But today we're going to talk about how water could not only be transformed, but is being transformed with some practical case studies from startups and scale-ups as well through AI. And also notice there, and this is part of the discussion later on, I've used the word transformed, or to be transformative, as opposed to disruption as well. So I want to make sure this panel kind of moves away from that well-trodden path and that narrative that people are used to hearing, that water is slow to innovate or is slow to adopt, and actually look at examples and cases where AI can be transformative. We're going to kick off with you, actually, Marshall, if you will. So if you'd like to welcome yourself to the Zoom stage, you have 4 minutes, and I am timing you on this, to give your vision of how you see AI transforming water. Over to you, Marshall.
All right. Hello, everyone. It's really great to see so many people in the audience that are normally on the other side of the panel. So hello, everyone. So I am, we're going to play a game of Spot the Luddite on the AI tech panel. I think a lot of times AI is hyped up a bit more than it should be. It's ultimately not the technology that's going to make these transformations, but the people whose hands it's in. And that's really core to how we approach things at Upstream Tech, and how I think technology should be deployed in general. There are people out there operating renewable hydropower generation, making decisions about water supply, determining if there's enough water for their agricultural assets. And it's those people who are going to make the change, and it's up to us to put the right tools in their hands. So that's what our thesis is at Upstream. We build software that expands access to those data and those tools. One of our services is called HydroForecast, which is a global water forecasting service. It accurately predicts the past, present, and future of water. I think I have time in 4 minutes to just give a quick overview of how that's been done in the past. You got persistence, which what happened yesterday will happen tomorrow. You've got regressions, just try to take the long-term average and say that's what'll happen. Conceptual models, which is you try to use a mathematical calibrated equation to capture physics. And ultimately, when you have something as interconnected as hydrology, where it's not just about how much rain is happening, but what the topology of the basin is where that rain is landing. What's the soil type? How's that forest doing? Is the forest still there? You know, what's the snowpack from last winter? Those are the applications where you have so many interconnected relationships where machine learning is a fantastic fit. And so we apply a nascent kind of time series forecasting network to this. And what's unique compared to all of those previous approaches, especially differentiated from the conceptual models, is we're able to throw a massive amount of data at these time series forecasting models. And that is one advantage of AI in general, if you do so cautiously. So we're able to provide not just a single weather forecast, but every weather forecast we can get our hands on. We provide satellite-derived information about how the forests are doing. What is the percent of the basin that's covered by snow, et cetera, et cetera. So what a machine learning model does, instead of having a mathematical equation where, okay, I want to add something about forests, I have to go in and totally recreate this equation, recalibrate it. With machine learning, it's really rapid for us to run an experiment. What happens if we have this data? Is it more accurate? Does it improve accuracy across every single basin we forecast in, or just this one locally? And that kind of iteration is what has allowed us to become the most accurate forecast at every horizon. We did compete in a year-long competition against the government forecast, the river forecast centers, hydropower utilities, in-house forecasting teams, and a bunch of other vendors. And we swept the competition, very exciting. And it's not to say those conceptual models don't have a place. Ultimately, what we're doing is building upon that body of knowledge. We're using the science that went into those conceptual models to train the machine learning in such a way that ultimately it is itself creating a mathematical equation that describes physics. So it's not a total like, oh, it's AI versus conceptual model. It's really what we like to call a physics-informed neural network. So to the question of like, how does this make change? I don't know where I'm at on time. I'll just wrap up here. For folks that are making decisions about water, be it that renewable generation, ag, flood management, water supply, best case, you have exactly how much water you need, no more, no less. Second best, you have some sort of oracle that gives you the exact future or state of water. And then third best is you have a really good forecast that helps you make decisions confidently, safely for the communities downstream, with good sense for your business. And so that's really why we've tried to tackle this problem with HydroForecast.
Yeah, can you give us, in terms of running a startup, scale-up company, looking to work with the competition, collaborating, Can you give us a sort of, when it comes to your software model, is this kind of like a dream of open collaboration? How do you see it when you're actually looking to approach other companies on this collaboration?
Yeah, I come from more of like the high tech background. I worked at a bunch of the big tech companies, and that was like very cutthroat. What was so wonderful 6 or 7 years ago when I switched over, and just like it's, I think, indicative of so many people on this call, like water is a collaborative challenge, and everyone wants to help one another. You know, very early on, I met Nusha, and Nusha gave me some wonderful advice on where to focus my energy. You know, I've gotten to know Paul and just so many other people on this call. And so I think what's fantastic is like there's so much to be done that it's not like a win. There's just no winners take all mentality here. It's like, let's all help each other. And I think that shows, you know, a lot of people like us publish their research. You know, there's no point in us hiding how we produce our forecasts. We're going to AGU. We're trying to do posters on like, yes, use LSTM models in your forecasting. It's great for time series. You know, we want to share that knowledge. And so, and someone asked this in chat, like, we're all making digital twins. There are digital twins everywhere. You know, we're overrun by twins. And I think it's really important as we do that to make sure that they don't become the walled gardens that we see in other industries, in other tech industries, that it's very easy to get data in, get data out, put ideas in, take the ideas out and disseminate them. So I think that's a mentality that people here already have, which is why I love working in this space versus the more traditional tech industry I came from. And I hope that continues as more and more people come in and start working on it.
Great to hear. Thanks, Marshall. Sort of a quite optimistic viewpoint then on knowledge sharing between different stakeholders. Helgi, for the next 5 minutes, you've got a couple of questions you want to sort of throw to the our 4 tech companies at the start. So please, let's hear what you've got.
Yeah, so Marshall, I enjoyed a lot of your comments, both spoken and written, and I wanted to dive into one of the elements that you mentioned, and that is you made a case around the fact that you still have conceptual, I would call them mechanistic equations being used. I think you called it, let me check here.
Physics informed.
Yeah, physics informed neural networks, exactly. And my question back to you is why? So I tell you why I asked the question, because at the end, I come across that very often, that either because of the customers that we serve or because of the background of the people that develop these models, it's almost like a verification that what they do has merits or is true because there's physics underneath it, right? But if we're true, while the physics describe real phenomena, they're always out of calibration. It's never the truth, right? It gives you the idea of or the perception of a truth that is never real because you have other systematic effects in the system that you simply cannot describe. So are you coming from that angle, using this physics informed basis because of that, because it is needed by you towards your customers? Or is it potentially because otherwise you would need even more data from the field? And if you don't have the data, you need to generate it via model. That's my question.
Really, really good question. And I'd be curious to hear if anyone else on the panel has thoughts. I think at the end of the day, the nice piece is that it's both. It is both what makes a better model, better prediction, and it makes it relatable and feel less like a magic black box to our customers. What's unique about our approach is that we train a single neural network on every basin that we have gauge data for. And we do that not because that results in a better model initially, but it forces the model to learn the common relationships between the inputs common across all of these very different basins, different aridity, different rainfall patterns, different snow situations, right? And that in and of itself, by training the model in that way, and then taking that core model and doing what's called transfer learning to tune it for a specific basin where we want to do higher performing forecasts, that process constrains the model to learn what is physically true. A perfect example is right now, if you said, Marshall, I have an asset in Alabama, I need you to create the best possible forecast. I could go on Amazon, find a off-the-shelf, like support vector machine learning model, train something that looks really good to you right now. The first time precipitation happens outside of what has happened historically, it would produce nonsense forecast. You would overtop your dam, flood the downstream community. Like, it's very easy to fake it. And the physics informed piece is that we are only providing inputs that we know through the science of hydrology actually impact surface water flows. And then we're also training it in such a way where we force it to learn the common hydrology across a wide range of basins before tuning it for a specific basin. And so it's better performing, and then it also helps us explain why different forecasts are producing the answers they are.
Thanks. We should meet to discuss more at some point. This is a great panel, by the way. It's a good discussion.
Very
Tom,
good.
somebody
Good
else,
question.
please.
And yeah, thanks, Helgi. If you guys can for sure carry on that discussion. So to wrap up, as if we haven't sort of given you enough of a tough task to summarize how you see AI transforming water in 4 minutes, we're actually going to give everyone 30 seconds to, I know we're sticklers for time, right? To kind of, I think, articulate the potential application that you think holds the greatest promise for AI in water. There you go, 30 seconds. Articulate the potential application that you think holds the greatest promise for AI. And Marshall, we'll come back to you to sort of bring us home out of all of our speakers on this. 30 seconds, no pressure, over to you.
Sure, I'll absolutely ruin the vibe. And I hope the future is that we all forget that it's AI, and AI just fades into the background as another tool in our toolbox. It's a very exciting technology, but it's not always the right one to reach for. And I think as we tackle problems, it's about reaching for the right tool and applying it thoughtfully with the end user in mind. So that's my hope for the future, that we stop talking only about AI and we talk about the whole toolbox.
Love it. Okay, thoughtful application without perhaps, when AI is working wonderfully well, we shouldn't even know it, right? So great stuff. So Paul, I've got you home. You've got 1 minute to spare to summarize everything you've just heard.
This has been fantastic, better than expected. And my expectations were pretty high for given this cast of characters. So there's a ton of rich information here, and I really appreciate the sort of even-keeled approach that folks have taken here. I think Marshall's point about AI perhaps fading, it's a tool, amongst many, and that there wasn't this sort of zeal approach to this, right? So I think it's terrific, and yet great ideas about potential interventions. And I think it's really important to think about where can it be helpful, and are you just sort of chasing unicorns? And but we need to think about putting this AI in service of what we want to achieve and use it appropriately and in spaces where it's relevant. So terrific conversation. I think everyone's emails from who registered, and really look forward, hopefully, to some continued discussions in this space. Obviously, there's a lot of work to do, and this is a great group of people to do that work. Thank you.